Hello, everybody.
Hello, how's it going?
Welcome to Coffee Class with Young Screenwriters. We are an online resource and community for upcoming screenwriters. And today we are talking about writing action in a screenplay, which is really fun and sounds easy until you're sitting down to do it and are trying to figure out how the F you you put these ideas in your head onto the page. So that is why we're talking about it today. And I'm very excited. Also, thank you for bearing with us. We had to start a few minutes late.
No worries. I mean, you're not apologizing to me, but I'm
No, I'm
apologizing
not.
for everyone.
I would never apologize to you.
Many thousands of people watching.
Yeah, to all the fans back home, right? But yeah. So Adam, do you want to introduce kind of what we're talking about in case people are unfamiliar?
Well, this is a very large, expansive subject that we could probably do 3 to 4 coffee classes on. It's kind of endless because at the end of the day, it depends how you describe action. But in the way we're describing action in this conversation, there's a lot of ways to tell stories and communicate that into a modern competitive screenplay. So today, I think we're just, by our definition, we're talking specifically about narrative description, also called action lines, in the context of what we call action, right? Which is like not a dialogue scene. So like in totally crude terms, how to write scenes where things are happening in a dynamic way that's readable and engaging. And what we mean by readable and engaging is something that's like, easy to read.
Federico, I feel like I haven't seen you in a bit. It's so good to see you back. Missed you.
Alexie,
but yes, that was great.
I was counting the minutes.
Ignore him. So yeah, that's a good summary. We're also going to look at just, there's action in a screenplay, like fight scenes, and then there's action in general, like literally just how do you convey the actions that people take over the course of a screenplay. And we have an example of both of those is really what we are looking at. Yeah, you've been missing in action. That's clever. Adam just went missing in action. But good thing I am very prepared. Oh, there he is.
Sorry, I accidentally clicked away.
Hey, Rhonda. I probably said that wrong. Can you correct me if I did? Rhonda? I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I figured we'd start with Alien. Or Adam, did you have another one? Did you want to start with Matrix?
No, let's do it. We're in. Let's do it. This is a great screenplay.
Okay, cool. So
even though it's extremely old.
Yeah. It's also, so Dan O'Bannon, Adam, you know about Dan O'Bannon.
He wrote the original screenplay, which was not as good as this one.
Mm-hmm.
But he's written a great book on screenwriting that I highly recommend, that Avi turned me on to.
Which one's that? What's that called again?
I keep forgetting. It's such a generic sounding title. And I don't even really like to recommend screenwriting books. The reason why I like it is, sorry, we're standing with such a tangent, is that he has a summary in the book. Yeah, it's Dan O'Bannon's Guide to Screenplay Structure. Inside Tips, right? Terrible name for a book. But anyway, the reason why I like it is that he summarizes pretty much every major theory on screenwriting structure and like does his commentary on it. Before he gets to the last third of the book is like his opinion. So it's very much kind of like feels like a best of screenwriting books of the last 100 years. Not just screenwriting books, but like books on drama. He includes Aristotle and like Lajos Egri, like really all of these sort of philosophical views on story structure. And it's like if you're only going to read one screenwriting book in your life, it's a good one because it's like, wow, that's a lot.
Let me see if I just posted his name. Let me see.
Dan O'Bannon is the guy who wrote the original draft of Alien, and he wrote the screenplay for Total Recall, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie about time travel.
And here is a link. I would not use Amazon, but I'm like multitasking.
Yeah, too late.
Sorry. That's the book that Adam is talking about. Dan O'Bannon's
It's a really
Guide
good one.
to Screenplay.
That's good.
Hey, Theo.
So let's get into Alien.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so this is Alien. So Journey Weaver. It's a great film, very old, probably seen it. So the thing that I like about this is this, especially for the era, was a very unconventional way to approach narrative action on the screen, on the page. The beginning is mostly setup, but then we get into some movement and things like that. This is not looking at a fight scene. This is starting broader. This is literally just looking about like, how do you convey action on a page? And so I want to read through about the first page and a half and just take a peek at it with you all. And something I'd like to try to encourage you to pay attention to is how long it takes me to say each thing and like what you're visualizing at each second. And I will talk about that more after, I suppose. Unless, Adam, are you feeling inspired to do a narrative reading?
I'm doing it. You've been hogging them all recently. So
go for it.
Fade in, sometime in the future. Interior, engine room, empty, cavernous. Interior, engine cubicle, circular, jammed with instruments, all of them idle. Console chairs for two, empty. Interior, oily corridor, sea level. Long, dark, empty, turbos throbbing, no other movement. Interior, corridor, A level, long, empty. Interior, infirmary, A level. Distressed ivory walls, all instruments at rest. Interior, corridor to bridge, A level, black, empty. Interior bridge, vacant. Two space helmets resting on chairs, electric hummed. Lights on the helmets begin to signal to each other. Moments of silence. A yellow light goes on. Data bank in BG. Electric hum. A green light goes on in front of one helmet. Electronic pulsing sounds. A red light goes on in front of the other helmet. An electronic conversation ensues, reaches a crescendo, then silence. The lights go off, save the yellow. Interior, corridor to hypersleep vault. Lights come on. 7 gowns hang from the curved walls. Vault door opens. Interior, hypersleep vault. Explosion of escaping gas. The lid on a freezer opens up slowly, groggily. Kane sits up, pale. Kane rubs the sleep from his eyes, stands, looks around, stretches, looks at the other freezing compartments, scratches, moves off. Interior, galley. Kane plugs in a Silex, lights a cigarette, coughs, grinds some coffee beans, runs some water through. Rise and shine, Lambert. Anyway, etc., etc.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we could keep going because it's all very well done like this. But thank you for reading that, Adam.
Look how much white space is on the page. Like, considering that this is a screenplay where we don't meet a character for the first page, right? We don't have any idea of any inner life or emotional conflict. Like that's what I think is maybe old-fashioned about it, is that it takes its time to sort of show us the setting. Old-fashioned is maybe the wrong word. I mean, for spec screenplay, but like cinematically, they're showing the world of the story. We're going to come back to all of these locations throughout the script. You know, like this is sort of the quiet before the storm, and very much shows the ship asleep in space before people wake up. So it's really good. But like the way it's done, Alexie, I'm sure you're going to comment on this, is really just every word counts. Long, empty. That's all you need to know about A level corridor. It's tight. That is the word. Tight.
So something that part of the reason why I wanted to start with this script is because of this idea that I mean, we talk about this a lot, so I'm just going to repeat myself, I suppose. That's okay. A minute on the screen is 1 page of your screenplay. So 1 page of your screenplay should take 1 minute to play out on the screen by the time you're done, right? So that has really important implications for how long you take to write out what's happening in a scene, right? This shot, like these series of shots takes up 1 page. That means we should be in this space for a minute, right? So this is like the implication is that we're like taking our time and like moving through this, like, kind of feels like an exploration of this spaceship. We're going slow and we're observing all of these different things. This could have been, you see that this is intentional here, especially with the bridge, where you have the space helmet and that whole sequence of them. Basically what happens is they both light up. They both light up, blink a lot, and then it turns off. That's what happens here. But the writer wanted this to take time on the page. So every single line is what you're seeing in the shot. Every single line is what you're seeing in the frame on the screen. And so the writer is taking the time to make sure that this gets the appropriate amount of screen time that they're imagining. Vacant. 2 space helmets resting on chairs. Electrical helm. Lights on the helmet begin to signal to one another. Again, if this was meant to be fast, he could have just written 2 space helmets light up, beep at each other, and then go silent. But this is a very like intentional way to control the pace of the action that's happening. And then again, you see this throughout all of this, where all of the action is very brief, but is paced the way that they want it to fill the time on the screen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's the classic. Every shot, every sentence is a shot, and sometimes a shot is literally of an empty corridor, or a woman sits up, right? I think everyone needs to kill the floweriness in themselves a little bit if you want to get into screenwriting. But like, you have to go for terse and tight and efficient, loaded verbs, really distilled imagery. Do you want to do an action scene, like a fight scene from The Matrix?
Yeah. Do you have a page in mind?
Yes, I do. Page 103.
Let me.
For those who haven't actually read this script, it's a surprisingly great script for the 90s. We're going chronologically. We're starting with old and 70s, and now we're getting to the 90s. So page 103.
Let me go ahead and I'm going to share this in case anybody else wants to look on their screen. What did you say?
Page 103.
Okay. Sorry.
No worries. Oh, you missed it. There you go. This one here. Great. I'm just going to read this one action scene starting at exterior roof day. If you want to be do you want to read it? I'll do the characters.
Are you feeling inspired to be pilot?
I'm feeling I want to be pilot.
Okay.
So it's going from exterior roof day to halfway through the next page. You'll know when.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good. All right. This is page 103 if you want to look on your own screens. Exterior, roof, day. The roof access tower is now engulfed in flames as Neo and Trinity stand amongst a pile of their fallen enemies. Across the roof, the pilot inside the army helicopter watches the last of their ferocious onslaught.
I repeat, we're under attack.
Suddenly, his whole body dissolves, consumed by a spreading locust-like swarm of static as Agent Jones emerges. Just as she drops the final Marine, Trinity sees what's coming. Neo sees her, fear in her face, and he knows what is behind him. Screaming, he whirls, guns filling his hands with thought speed. Fingers pumping, shells ejecting, dancing up and away. We look through the sights and the gun smoke at the agent, blurred with motion, until the hammer clicks against the empty metal.
Trinity!
Agent Jones charges.
Help!
His gun booms, and we enter the liquid space of bullet time. The air sizzles with wads of lead like angry flies as Neo twists, bends, ducks just between them. Agent Jones, still running, narrows the gap, the bullets coming faster until Neo, bent impossibly back, one hand on the ground as a spiraling gray ball shears open his shoulder. He starts to scream as another digs a red groove across his thigh. He only has time to look up, see Agent Jones standing over him, raising his gun a final time.
Only human.
Suddenly, Agent Jones stops. Hears a sharp metal click. Immediately, he whirls around and turns straight into the muzzle of Trinity's 45, jammed tight to his head.
Dodge this.
Boom, boom, boom. The body flies back with a flash of mercurial light, and when it hits the ground, it is the pilot. Trinity helps Neo up.
All right, that's it. So
that was great.
What's fun about this action script is that I've also, this is late in the script after they've established like a lot of these ideas that anybody can turn into an agent, and like the pilot's bot transformed into Agent Jones, right? So like that was established by this point. But like the way the imagery they used of like his whole body dissolves, consumed by spreading locusts like swarm of static, right? Like I don't know what that means, but I can visualize it.
Yeah, I feel that.
Right. And in this world, like they do a really good job of like making really potentially like confusing visuals concrete with like that kind of language.
And it doesn't necessarily have to follow the laws of grammar. This feels like someone telling it to you. Like it's easier to read because it feels like someone telling it to you. You say suddenly his whole body dissolves. You know, it sounds like someone in like a pitch meeting who's excited to tell you about this scene. And it's not complete sentences. It kind of like, when I think of incomplete sentences, I think of like Alien, like this. But this is kind of a more subtle version where you see that you can have like a narration that isn't just like little bursts of words, but you still don't have to conform to like complete sentences and stuff like correct grammar. And also I really like I was gonna say I really like this here, where we get to see again it's implicit direction, right? The writers are choosing what to reveal and when we see just as she drops the final Marine, Trinity sees what's coming. That means we're seeing it too. Neo sees her, the fear in her face, and he knows what is behind him. So I guess we haven't seen yet what's behind him.
And we're in the character's point of view.
Mm-hmm. And so when he's screaming, rolls around, and then he sees the agent with motion, it's showing us we're along for the ride with Neo in the scene. And I think that that's something really helpful to think about when you're writing an action scene, is choosing whose shoulder are you on. You don't have to describe everything. Just whose shoulder are you on? Where are we looking? I don't need to know the entire choreography of the entire 50 people fighting.
Also, the word thought speed. So in this, for those who haven't seen The Matrix, I'm going to spoil it, came out 30 years ago, but like they're in a computer simulation. And it's a recurring theme, is sort of like, it's not what you can do, it's what you can, it's the limits of what you can do are your imagination, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you truly believe you can't jump over a building, then you can't. So there's a whole thing of thought speed is like the limitation of his thoughts to shoot this guy. And just like, you know, they're not explaining that right now, but like that's the jargon they're using. Mm-hmm. Guns have filled his hands with thought speed, and he's unloading on the agent until the hammer clicks against the empty metal, which is like, you know, one of those ideas, like, are you showing great images? Are you showing great sounds, right? Like they're not just, they're like the sound of the gun metal, the gun being empty. They don't say the gun is empty. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like one of those ideas of like how abstract you go. Like the gun is empty is a very abstract way of saying that. It's a very just detailed version, is to say until the hammer clicks against the empty metal. This is a moment where we are so in the moment. We want detail because this is happening, because literally time is moving kind of slowly. We're about to have the bullet time thing, right? Yeah. And just to answer the question earlier, yes, this should still be a minute, right? Like that's the platonic ideal of all screenplays. Yeah, there are exceptions, and sometimes things are edited or directed differently, but like you're trying to make it a minute per page.
Sometimes if you have a whole page of dialogue, it'll move faster than a minute. Sometimes if you have a whole page of scene description, it'll move slower. But loosely, you should be shaking out to about that. Something else I wanted to point out with this, I wish I could remember the name. This is super production heavy side of screenwriting. This is like not our stage, but it's still useful to know. When fight coordinators are coordinating a scene, they teach the action sequences to the actors or the stunt doubles in like little sets. I wish I could remember what they're called. They might be called sets or like acts or something. They're called like they're basically like little chunks of the movement where they can be broken up and learned individually as separate little pieces. And if you start thinking about where are the separate pieces in this, there's a few different moments where we see we see a transition to a new piece, like when the metal clicks. That's like a shift in the action. You're doing a burst and then a shift, burst, shift, and even like the bullet time is very clearly its own little set piece. So that can be something, getting like really into the nitty gritty, that's useful to think about when you're writing your action scenes. Is it's not one massive running action piece, right? You're thinking about it as these little sets, and you have energy changes, little moments where something shifts, where somebody's on top for one moment, then you enter a new set and the other person's on top. That's the kind of thing that makes your scene really feel like it's pushing through. So like in a chase, you might have like, now they're running through the market and they're smashing fruit, and then now they're jumping out the window or like running along the pier. Like you have like, sometimes it's location, sometimes it's
like zooming out and then you zoom in, right? Like if there's a bad version of smashing through the fruit market where sort of like they focus on every single avocado he turns over, right? You know, it's like, for sure. Well, and there's so many scripts I read that spend so much time going like this with every single moment, like you can't even read them because your brain can't source what's important versus what's not important. So like when you zoom in and you give us like, you know, level of like in the moment detail, it has to be so important or like really actiony. And you have to, like you said, Alexie, you have to like vary it up. It's like rhythm. Like when so much of rhythm is variation, right? If you have like the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again, your brain will just like turn off to it.
For sure. You know what? I'm going to find the video where basically it's a woman who does fight coordinating and stuff like that.
We should share that for sure.
I will. And she's breaking down the fight between in Witcher. She's breaking down the fight between Geralt and what's her name? Starts with an R, like Remy, something like that. What's her name? But she's breaking down that fight that they have. That's pretty early on. It's like it's the Butcher of Blaviken scene. And she shows the different sets, like the different little pieces that they have. And it's something that sounds very musical because it's like very dancey. I wish I could remember what they're called, but I will find that link and I will share that video with you all, because, you know, knowing that kind of things about the production side can inform your writing. And it also just helps it seem less daunting if you're thinking like, okay, let's shift to the other person's winning. You know, like, let's give this person an advantage. Let's change the setting. What can we shift here to keep this dynamic and interesting? I'll find it.
Do you want to read another scene from this or do something else?
Yeah, we can read another scene from this.
Do you have? Let's do a more. So let's go to page 113 at the bottom. There's another good page. This is the end of the subway fight scene. Page 113.
Subway station?
Yeah, it's at page 100. Yeah, subway station day. Yeah, they're right there. So this is towards the end of his big climactic fight with Agent Smith. Do you want to read?
Sure.
I can too, if you want.
I'll do it. You could read Quiet Place. That one's going to be fun.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Interior, subway station day. Agent Smith grabs a hold of him, lifting him into the air, hurling him against the curved wall of the train tunnel, where he falls inches from the electrified train rail. The agent is about to jump down and press his attack when he hears something from deep in the tunnel, like an animal cry, a burst of high-speed metal grinding against metal, the sound of an oncoming train. Neo tries to get up. Agent Smith jumps down onto the track and drop kicks him in the face. The world again begins to shake, rumbling as the train nears.
You hear that, Mr. Anderson?
Agent Smith grabs Neo in a chokehold, forcing him to look down the tracks, the train's headlights burning a hole in the darkness.
That is the sound of inevitability.
Neo sees it coming, and he starts to fight.
It is the sound of your death.
There's another metal screech, much louder, closer, as Agent Smith tightens his hold. Neo is unable to breathe.
Goodbye, Mr. Anderson.
The train roars at them, swallowing Agent Smith's words. The veins bulge in Neo's head as he grits through the pain. He's not ready to die.
My name is Neo.
Impossibly, he hurls himself straight up, smashing Smith against the concrete ceiling of the tunnel. They fall as the sound and fury of the train explodes into the station. Neo backflips off of the tracks just as the train barrels over Agent Smith. Neo stands, he's shaking, when the train slams on its emergency brake. With an ear-splitting shriek of tortured rails, the train slows, part of it still in the station. Neo turns, limping, starting to run, racing for the escalator. As the train comes to a stop and the doors of the last car open, Agent Smith bursts out in a furious pursuit, his glasses again intact.
All right, great job, great job. And this, again, is that same idea of even if you kill an agent, they'll just come back as somebody else. So his glasses being intact are, he broke his last glasses, but he has brand new glasses. So it's like a fresh, it's a great moment. It's sort of like he spends like literally 15 minutes fighting to the death with this guy. And then he comes back totally fresh. It's great. I love how it's slowed down, right? Like the variation of being like the way they use the train sounding. So like as like a ticking clock. Right.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Also,
that description of it being like an animal.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, they describe very similar things a few times over, like with the metal screeching, but they're managing to do it in a way that actually keeps it interesting and dynamic. Because it's just honest, like it's a lot of screeching.
I think the reason is like it's
happening.
sort of it's closing in, right? Like it's getting closer and closer.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find this gosh dang. Oh, here we go. This is who it is.
Also, that he is not ready to die is like a very nice moment of subjectivity, right? Like it's almost like kind of a prose line where we're inside of Neo's head, sort of telling us like the actor performance.
For sure. Here we go. I just found it.
What are you saying again?
This is the stunt woman breaking down the Butcher Blaviken scene. She does this with a lot of different action scenes about like she has like Pirates of the Caribbean with Jack fighting Will, and breaking down like what's realistic and what's not. And
gotcha.
It's pretty cool. But this one is
it's good.
Yeah. This is the one with from The Witcher, which is a great film, and it explains the thing I was talking about, like with the different pieces. So I would recommend checking that out if you want to write action. For sure, Chris. Absolutely. Do we want to look at Quiet Place?
You don't know that. You don't know the tie bars of you haven't seen the movie.
I'm saying that sounds like 1950s G-Man. I know what tie bars are.
No, it does. I just so much of like the imagery around them is like the anonymous FBI agent imagery of like the Cold War, like the men in suits who will come and get you, kind of like the abstract. We doing Quiet Place?
That's what I was thinking. Unless you wanted to do.
Yeah, great. Do you have a scene?
I know what it looks like. I need to find it. Oh, this. Oh no, that wasn't. These kinds of things. So let me grab this link for you all. This is not the script that is the movie.
This is the original script.
Yeah, this was the spec
not
screenplay.
The John Krasinski rewrite.
Mm-hmm. And although he did like maintain some of this stuff, the screenplay did a lot of really unconventional things in terms of the narrative description
and did them well too.
And did them well, yeah. And I just want to highlight a few of them here to kind of show the kinds of way. I don't know if we're actually going to read through it yet. I mostly mean like just showing things like this, how they're controlling the pacing of the action with the 3, 2, 1.
For context for people, the whole idea of this script is that they're future apocalypse, and there are these aliens that can sense sound, and they're sensitive to sound. So the characters have to stay dead silent the entire movie. So there's almost no dialogue, and one of the characters is deaf too, so it increases the stakes. And so like a lot of this idea of 3, 2, 1, Mia runs for it is sort of to show the intensity and slowed down like suspense of people trying to be quiet when there's a giant monster that can hear their every sound.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to, so I guess we could do this one. Let's do this. Do you want to read this for us, Adam?
Sure. Exterior farmhouse afternoon. John comes out of the front door. The monster stands between him and the shed, between him and his family. John looks at his newborn baby, his eyes filled with joy and fear. Mia tries to muffle the weeping infant. The monster senses their presence, but can't quite place their exact location. John walks slowly but urgently to the shed. As the wind starts blowing, the leaves of the trees bend and rattle. It disguises the sound of John's footsteps. John closes his eyes, focusing all of his energy, doing his best not to make a single sound. This is the longest walk of his life. Yeah, it's really creative, really good, really well done.
Here we go. Let's continue.
John, John is 30 feet away from the shed. 20 feet away. 10 feet. 5. Snap. John looks down in horror, the broken twig under his foot. The creature whips around, rears up. John runs for it. The monster screams. So
there we go. I love that
playing on that idea, playing on the base concept, the conceit of screenplay, not conceit, but like the platonic ideal aspiration of a screenplay is that every page is a minute of screen time. The longest walk of his life, that's a few minutes of screen time. I don't know what it actually if they actually converted that idea into the final script or what it actually ended up on the screen. But on the page, you get the sense of like you understand the stakes for this. Not to talk about story too much, but like you understand it has so many story elements, even though it's only a few words on every page. Like you understand as the reader what's happening. If he makes a single sound, this monster will hear him and his family will be in jeopardy. They literally establish that between him and his family, right? So when the snap comes, it's like that release of tension of like, oh God, it's happening.
For sure. I was thinking about also pulling up Into the Spider-Verse as an example. Let me drop it. Here we go. I will grab.
I also have an example. I shared the second script I shared after, which is James Bond, Skyfall, which is a good script. I mean, I'm not the biggest James Bond fan, but it's a well-written action script.
Let's see. All right, we can check that out in a sec. I just wanted to show a little bit about how they handled some of the action scenes in Into the Spider-Verse, because this is different than, this is a huge studio animated film. And I would say it has some similarities and some differences that are worth looking at. But there's also a lot more dialogue. So
because it's a family film specifically, it's like so much of the bread and butter of that is warm, fun character interactions that you love.
And
and
Spider-Man in
can't really have
particular.
that. Spider-Man's
Yeah.
a chatty guy,
He's
and that's kind of the whole
chatty.
point. Yeah, that's why I've always liked Spider-Man.
Me too.
I mean, he's the most popular, right, of the Marvel.
He's my favorite superhero and always has been.
Yeah, he's really good. It's a good character.
Okay, so we had some fighting and stuff like that, and then they've actually called, since this must be a later draft, they've called this sequence Meet Kingpin. Adam, do you want to be?
I'll be whatever you want me to be.
You can be Miles.
I can do all the characters.
Okay, that's fine. That sounds good. All right. Interior, super collider room. He is now in an enormous chamber containing a super collider.
Whoa!
Miles looks around the room, confused.
What is this place?
Spider-Man and Goblin burst through the doors above him. Miles falls straight down, but Spidey spots Miles and swings him safely away, high and far from the action. They are in an observation ledge overlooking the collider chamber. A beat as they appraise each other. Then,
do you know your shoes are untied? This is a onesie, so I don't really have to worry about it.
A beat. Spidey senses something in Miles. Their spider senses resonate, like a mind meld.
I thought I was the only one. You're like me. I don't want to be. I don't think you have a choice, kiddo. Got a lot going through your head, I'm sure. Yeah. You're going to be fine. I can help you. If you stick around, I can show you the ropes. Yeah. I just need to destroy this big machine real quick before the space-time continuum collapses. Don't move. I'll see you in a bit.
In an amazing, mind-boggling move, Spidey jumps away and uses the massive churning super collider to whip himself up until he's on the ceiling, hundreds of yards above, and eye level with the ceiling panel.
How does he do that?
He rips the panel out, reaches in, pulling out a complicated wiring. He pulls a strange computerized key out of the suit and tries to plug it into the hanging port. Miles watches, impressed. So it goes on like this, but you can already see.
So I have two things I want to comment on. One, which is I love, well, not love, but like I think it's so important to use language that represents what the viewer reads, understands, right? He pulls out a strange computerized key. That is language that an audience would understand, right? Like a kid would look at it and be like, oh, that's a strange computerized key. They wouldn't know that, like, if you actually put in the name for what that is, like from the person who designed it, or like so often in science fiction screenplays, they put in description as understood by the people in the world. And that can work as long as you've done your exposition homework, right? Right. As long as the audience understands that this is a warp connector drive, right? You can say he picks up the warp connector drive. Right?
Yeah.
Or is it the pen-like computerish thingy is what the average audience would like actually know. So this is just a side note, but I think that's really, really important to remember.
Honestly, it's like I would have to make sure this is the first time that we've seen the super collider before I go on a big thing about it. But this is something that is so hard to me in animated stuff because you have this desire to make sure that you're being clear. And so sometimes we have a tendency to describe the F out of scene, like to describe the F out of the setting and be like, this is what the super collider looks like. It's like this huge cylinder thing in this massive room. It's like a warehouse and get into all these details. But here, they are just saying it's a super collider room. It's an enormous chamber containing a super collider. And that's enough. You know, you can use that and that's enough. Which I think is relevant to action too, because if we took the time to slow down and put a paragraph describing what this place looks like, then we have now added time that we're spending just looking at the room. Right?
And if you're adding words, they have to be words that either do one of two things: evoke emotion or move the plot forward. Then when I mean by evoke emotion, I mean specifically reveal character, right? So if you have a sentence or even a word in your story that's not either moving the plot forward or revealing character, you should probably cut the sentence. And understanding that this is a room where a super collider is moves the plot forward.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Sure.
Just basically.
Yeah. Mark said, in reading the page, do you suggest reading and role play to get the page and dialogue to work out to 1 minute? Yes.
That's a good idea. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So to plug our Thursday workshop again, every Thursday we read scenes aloud, and I think that it's really helpful for a lot of reasons, but especially for this, because if you have fallen into the trap of writing an action scene and then describing the super collider room for like 3 paragraphs of like really, really specific description, and as we're reading it aloud, you will hear that. You'll hear that the Green Goblin is throwing cluster bombs and he's like running away and all this exciting stuff. And then we get to the collider room, and then now the reader who's reading your narrative description out loud takes however 15-second break to basically describe your paragraphs of what the collider room looks like. You'll feel that that's not right for the screen. You'll feel the pace getting lost, which is going to be the experience of the reader reading your screenplay. And it's also would be, it's like what you would be laying out to the director or producer reading it. So it can be really helpful to hear it read to get a better understanding of pacing. So yes, I would definitely recommend reading your stuff aloud.
Can't hurt.
Yeah. And like, as you're reading it aloud, making sure that the energy is staying the way you want it. Like we were talking before about having the little set pieces. And sometimes you do have like more like intense bursts of actions and then down moments and bursts of actions. But generally you want that to be on purpose, unless you're planning a down moment to be, he steps into the collider room and is like, whoa, for 15 seconds. Don't write it out on a quarter, like take up a quarter of the page, you know?
So much of this is like editorial though too. Like I want to add, like, don't worry about any of this in your first draft. Like, no. 99% of what we just said today, don't really worry about in your first draft. Just get it on the page. If you have a 1 minute scene that's over 5 pages, okay, well, you got to cut some pages on your second pass when you're editing. But like, like if you're thinking like, oh my God, did I just write a sentence that reveals character or moves the plot forward? Oh no, I got to delete it. You're doing it wrong. Like, I just want to say that explicitly. This is all of this stuff comes into play when you're fixing what you've written. And so you can go through a scene that has a lot of glut on it and be like, I can cut that. I can reframe these 2 sentences as 1 sentence. I can, this is not clear. This is not important. Wait, I didn't actually say anything that was important. We don't need the scene. Like that's when all of this stuff we're talking about comes along. Like, I just want to be very clear. Don't be thinking about this stuff when you're trying to like just get pages out, you know?
Yeah. Unless it's to give yourself permission to just write what you see. That's the reason why I think it's useful to remember this. Is sometimes you sit there and you're trying to figure out, how can I like describe this in a way that's like really like eloquent and cool? Just write what we see. Write that it's a collider room, and then if you decide later,
write what we hear.
Write what we hear, write what we see, and then if you decide later that you need to go in and add in like the super like eloquent thing, then do it. Another piece of writing advice that I got a while ago that I live by is, don't let yourself get stuck on the first draft. If you don't know what they do, write the worst version. Like, write the first version that comes to mind. Just get something down and keep going. So, for example, this paragraph here. In an amazing, mind-boggling move, Spidey jumps away and uses the massive churning super collider to whip himself up until he's on the ceiling, hundreds of yards above, eye level with the ceiling panel. So, say you're sitting here and you're like, I know that Spider-Man now gets to the super collider. I know that's what's in my cards. That's what's in my beat sheet. He leaves Miles and he goes to the super collider. What's a cool way to get him there? And you sit there and you think for more than like a minute about a cool way to do it, and you find that you're stuck. Just write in the worst version. Right? He shoots a web and zips up, and then move on. And then in later draft, you can come back and you can think through like, okay, what would be a cool way to do this? But I feel like that's an important tip for writing action too, is that you can always make action cooler later.
Yeah, that's
Just
true.
write.
You can always make it better later, right? Like, and also in an amazing mind-boggling move is just like, it's really good because it's also in Miles's point of view.
Yeah. But it
right?
doesn't really mean anything, does it?
No, I mean, no, but like emotionally, like he's,
yeah,
it's all, everything he just said plays off the line. How does he do that?
Yep.
It's connecting. So that's connected to character. It's not just like arbitrarily, oh, he did a bunch of things. He did a bunch of amazing things because he's Spider-Man and Miles is so far away from him. It's not even funny. Like this is Act 1 stuff.
This is because what we were talking about before, you had to pick whose shoulder you're on. We're on Miles' shoulder for this.
Yeah.
And what he sees is an amazing, mind-boggling move. If we were writing this same action thing from Spider-Man's point of view, unless he was just like really feeling himself, he probably would not describe his own thing as an amazing, mind-boggling move. It'd probably be like he like did like this massive leap and like more, you know, technically about what he did. But for the point of view of the screenplay, this is exactly what's happening. This is what Miles is seeing.
You always want to be in your protagonist's head. It's just better.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, I mean, there are times when you don't, but like the vast majority of the time.
Yeah. And I mean, this is stuff that's kind of, that like we do follow Spider-Man. It doesn't mean you can't follow other people, but it does mean that like, you know, whose point of view it's about.
Whose scene is this, right? Because there's some scenes in this that are in Kingpin's head, right? The scene where we get a little bit more information about his family. You remember that? Like where he, and he has the flashback and sort of like the way that would be described, I'm sure, is from with his language, with his head. If they do that.
Yeah. I agree.
Prowler is bolded and capitalized. Wow.
It's the Prowler.
Also, that's what that means. Day, like, also another thing I wanted to say, like, anyone who has like really like intense opinions, like, oh my God, you bolded instead of underlined, or you underlined instead of bold. Get out of here. You are not a screamer. You don't understand. No one in the world who actually works gives a shit about any of this stuff. What they care about is, were they told a good story?
Yeah. Well, and was it clear? Because I will say
and was it clear? Yeah.
Like stuff like this, I feel like this is just so much.
You can't tell a good story without being clear, right? And at the end of the day, this is not the final version they went with. This was like the seed of a great idea that then, you know, there are a lot of differences between this and the final movie.
Yeah.
Or Quiet Place.
Yeah. It's like, I feel like the thing that I would be most concerned about in terms of styling, like bolding or underlining, first off, it's a new trend to bold your scene headings, and I personally love it. I think it makes scripts so much more readable.
For me, it's easier to read my scripts.
Yeah. It makes it easier as a writer. It makes it easier as a reader. It just makes it easier. I don't love when there's like tons of underlining, but that's just because it kind of it's kind of jarring to look at. There's no...
But there's a place for underlining. I do believe that, like, at the end of the day, it comes down to personal preference. Like, like you said, Alexie, are you being clear? And are you telling a good story? And the best writing does that, right? Like, if you have to underline to hit something, or if you have to word something in a different way, like, it all should come down to, am I being as clear as possible? And is this the story I'm trying to tell? Because at the end of the day, and another thing I want to say, a lot of beginning writers get really caught up with what's on the page. Like, they take it really seriously. And what matters is the story, right? Like, you shouldn't even be writing stuff until you know the story. Because then that question of being like, what does this look like? Isn't a question of what happens. It's what does this look like? And when you're writing your first draft, you should be answering, what does this look like? What does this sound like?
Yeah.
So many people get stuck trying, like, they have a basic outline and they're like, well, I don't know how to get from there to there. You should think that through. So you're asking yourself when you're writing, what does this look like? What does this sound like?
Yeah. And then if it's literally just that you don't know how to get Spider-Man from the platform to the top of the collider, do the simplest way and then move on, because what's important is the stuff that's in your outline, and you'll fill in the other pieces later. And I agree with Dan completely. I think underlining works when there's a big surprise or reveal.
100%.
My thing with underlining is that if you start out underlining only a few things, I will pay attention to those things and I will try to clock them in my mind as something that's important. If you
underline too many things, it becomes
if you underline everything, then it starts losing its impact. It's like the same as like, when it's overdone, I can't track it all, so it starts losing its impact, and that's just the way it goes.
See, like right here, I feel like they're doing a little bit too much. Just from
they way too much in this script. They do way too much.
Let's just look at this snapshot right here. Ignoring the cool handwritten stuff, which I actually think is great, but like, okay, they have bolded and capitalized man. They have the bolded scene heading, and they have the underlining, and they have capitalized letters. You have capitalized, bold capitalized, and underlined, all on the same, not even the same page, but like just the same little chunk here. Like when you're the purpose of bolding something or underlining something or capitalizing something, aside from the very technical sounds should be capitalized, which I do believe. Mm-hmm. If everything's important all the time, nothing's important.
Yes.
And this right here, like that first for me, like I would get through it because the script's great, but like,
yeah, the story's good enough, but
right.
Yeah, but like this, look, they used every single one. It is bold, italicized,
and they extended,
and underlined, and it's capital, and it's
an italicized capitalization. But here's the thing: we're talking about it, and it's a great so it's a great script. No one's denying that, and like you can get away with it. But here's the thing: I will say in their defense, this is to compensate for the fact that there's no dialogue.
Yeah, it is. Like, look at this. These guys do way too much.
We've talked about this script before, but like it
still makes me laugh. I love it. I really do love it. I think that's part of the thing. It's like, it's clear though that they're in command of their craft. If this was a bad story, then this would be like inexcusable. Let's
go to the James Bond script, just because it's super classic, like it's super modern. Like it's like more, it's closer to the platonic ideal of like a modern screenplay.
Right. Which page?
Just the opening pages. It's fine. I just want to get to like the sense of how it's written.
Oh, nice.
It's very clean, very efficient. It's a James Bond. So I'll do it. You could be the characters. You can be James Bond. Interior, hotel corridor day. We're moving down a dark corridor. Then, emerging from the darkness, ice blue eyes. Bond cautiously moves through the tight hallway, gun ready. We have no idea where we are. We hear distant city noises outside. He rounds a corner. At the end of the hall, open door. Dead body. Bond picks up his pace, gets to the door, nudges it open, aiming. Interior, hotel room day. Bond enters. Eyes take it in. Scene of carnage. Another dead body. Euros scattered around. Empty metal briefcase. Laptop. Backed ripped off. Hard drive missing. Signs of a struggle. And a dying MI6 agent on the floor, gasping for breath. Eyes pleading up at Bond. Bond moves to him quickly, checks his pulse.
Johnson's down. He needs a medical evac.
A voice crackles through the darkness. It's M.
Where is it? Is it there?
Bond looks over to the laptop.
Hard drive's gone. Are you sure? It's gone. Give me a minute.
Bond works urgently to staunch the bleeding. Ronson looks up at him, eyes desperate.
They must have it. Get after them. I'm stabilizing Ronson. We don't have the time. I have to stop the bleeding. Leave him.
Ronson hears this too. Their eyes meet. Bond sets Ronson down. There's another door. He heads toward it. One glance. The secret agent dying alone. All right. That gets to the point. But, I mean, that's a really... I mean, I say what you will about the movie. I'm not the biggest James Bond fan in the world, but, like, that's clean, good screenwriting. Yeah. From the beginning, we have a sense of his relationship with M. And the entire movie is about his relationship with M. She tells him to leave the body, to leave the guy to die. And he has to make a decision, and he follows her advice.
Yep.
But just, that's a story thing. But
and this is another really good example of writing for your protagonist. So it's not just a matter of like, well, my personal style is like really, really like simple details. It's also Bond's impression of the scene. So imagine the kind of person who would look at this scene and say this. This is how Bond would describe the scene. He says, another dead body, crow scattered around, empty metal briefcase, laptop, back ripped off, hard drive missing, signs of a struggle. That's like, you know, it's from the point of view of a secret agent analyzing the scene. What are the things that their eyes are going to? It's helping us really understand his point of view. If this was in like a rom-com, I mean, granted, it would be other things. You'd have to like it evokes a certain character and vibe if you treated like them walking into like a spa the same way. You know,
it's to write the character and how the character sees the world.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great observation. The other thing with the contrast of the last script, look how impactful Scenes of Carnage is on this page, because it's the only underlined thing and nothing's bold. So this is kind of not putting scene headings, is that when you do something, it snaps off the page.
Yeah,
I will say I do like bolding scene headings, but like bold
the scene headings, Bond. Can't believe it.
This is very much like a really good example of a very modern, clean, nothing
Hollywood.
This is a very Hollywood clean script, but in a good way. Forget who wrote it. I think Sam Mendes. Let's see. Oh,
3 people.
3 people. Lots of people's hands on this. Oh, John Logan. I know him. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good pick.
I also like that we have no idea where we are. So it's kind of a good example. It's a good reminder of we are in the audience's head at the end of the day. What?
Sorry, I'm giggling at Michelle. She was complimenting my acting, and yeah.
Don't be too kind. Don't encourage me. No.
Oh man.
Well, we're at time. Is there anything? We could do like 5 of these. Like, there's so much.
No.
You could,
and
there's gonna be
we were hoping to have Avi join us, so maybe we'll do another one about like more specific parts of action, something like that, in the coming weeks when Avi can join us. Because I think that he wanted to look at Aliens, not Alien, and I don't know Aliens. So
Aliens is written. Aliens is a fun movie. I wouldn't say the screenplay is written in the same terse tone. It's James Cameron. It's very different. It's very different. Yeah.
Maybe we'll look at how non-actiony movies handle action. Because
rom-com
like there's rom-com scripts and how they describe the spa. And if it's like James Bond.
That is a form of action, right? You know, like
yeah, it is.
Alien is a better movie than Aliens, in my opinion, because that's because it appeals to the type of science fiction I like. I like mystery. I like intrigue. I like not knowing things. And Aliens felt like a big blowout action movie. It's like they're literally aliens. There are lots of them this time, right? Like, rather than the single creature, the single monster in the crypt on the ship as the crew gets knocked off. Like, that's such a more, I don't know, mysterious, intimate. Yeah, that's the word. Idea. Anyway, that's all I've got.
Yeah. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. If there's something you want us to talk about, Mo, please say so. And we would love to do whatever topics you're all interested in. I'll have to check out Aliens. Maybe I'll check it out.
It's a good movie. It's very fun. I will say it's. I don't know if I want to rewatch it. I don't know if it's more rewatchable than Alien, but it's like it doesn't feel like a horror film to me. Like, it feels like an action movie.
I want to find a way to pull up some Killing Eve scripts. So I was talking about it the other day.
Did you find some?
No.
Some shows are hard to find scripts on. It's funny. I know the comedies out there that have a lot of improvisation don't actually release.
Oh wait, I do. I have the pilot. I have the pilot.
Yeah, we already went through the pilot, right? But I thought you meant like other than the pilot, because we've done the pilot.
Yeah, I wanted other ones because this is so. I wonder if it changes later, because there's like, this is an example where it's Phoebe Waller-Bridge, so she can kind of get away with it. But this is what I'm talking about with like, is this really how much time you want to take on the guards and things like that? But.
And then all we're doing is describing the platonic ideal of screenwriting. There's still great stories that don't really read as clean, you know?
And the platonic ideal for a spec screenplay, which this was not.
Very specifically. So, because if you're like some auteur, or if you're Steven Spielberg and you like are saying, you know, I want to write a screenplay. Not that he really writes that much anymore, but like if you sit down and you do it, it doesn't matter. Nobody he's going to do what he's going to do, and people are going to give him money to do it. So who cares, right? Yeah. David Fincher, any script he picks, it doesn't even really matter. Like, what's the famous story from Gladiator? Ridley Scott, when he picked Gladiator and was trying to get actors to join it, everybody was like, this is one of the worst scripts I've ever read. And he says, I know, but trust me. And apparently the script for Gladiator was just so infamously bad. Like the dialogue was terrible. And he was like, no, don't worry. We'll fix it. It's fine. Join the movie. We're going to shoot the fall or whatever, you know? And the movie's great. You know, I mean, I don't know if what the rewriting process was or if they did, but my point is Ridley Scott was in the position to make something that everyone, including himself, thought was a bad script.
Which is just wild.
I know, it's wild. I think he was more of like he liked the structure, he liked the idea, but like the script itself was not very. Yeah. Anyway, it's a fun little anecdote.
Tidbit. Cool. Oh, and also we should have John coming on soon. So.
Oh, have we booked him? We gotta get him.
We gotta talk to him. Gotta figure out what we want him for. So if you all have anything you want us to ask John about, let us know.
I think John. We could have him come in and talk about screenwriting.
Well, I would hope so.
This is an idea. I don't know. It's just maybe he has some thoughts. Maybe he has some opinions on screenwriting.
I doubt it. He's not very opinionated. If he doesn't, we can
just sort of have an awkward hour-long phone call, you know?
John's very rarely awkward. I will give him that. I think that's why he's such a good Hollywood man.
Yeah, he's good at reading the room and, like, you know, normalizing.
Oh, it'd be fun. John Warren, our lovely professor.
John Warren. Yeah, John Logan. Honestly, we need some new people. Let's get John Logan on. That sounds great.
Call him
his
up.
email? Give his email?
Sure.
Honestly, we do. Alexie, we need to get more famous people on here. Well, we should at least try. We need to be better.
Or we need to get famous.
Both. Honestly, there are like non-famous people we should be reaching out. We should be better about getting guests. Let's be an offline conversation.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming out today and talking about action with us. I hope that this was useful to you, and that you'll join us next Friday. Have a good weekend, everybody.